get to you last. Because I know you know. Yeah. Sino-Japanese War. Awesome. Glad you remember the name. Sino-Japanese War. We had two of them, right? 1 and 2. The first one. Does anyone remember what they got in the first one? Control over someone? Korea, right. They were able to take Korea. Do you remember what the second one was?
Is it the one where they blew up the railroads?
Right, so that's how they kicked it off. It was the Mukden incident, where they blew up their own railroad and blamed it on the Chinese in that Manchurian region, right? So yeah, through that, they take a lot of Manchuria and was that eastern China that they're able to take control of, right? And does anyone remember what the League of Nations did about it? Absolutely nothing, yeah. Popular trend, I'll say it like every single day, popular trend of the League of Nations that they're doing nothing, right?
But they did say, hey, we don't like that.
Yeah, they condemned them, right? Or there might be small economic sanctions, like, oh, you can't, you know, you did that, now we're going to put a tax on the goods that we put in, even more than we did before, right? So yeah, that's good. Sino-Japanese War. Yeah, do you guys remember what happened, that one massacre? Someone knows. Somebody knows what happened.
Some people died.
A lot of people died.
They just basically pillaged all of Manchuria.
Right, in Nanking.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Nanking massacre, or the rape of Nanking, where 100 to 300,000 people were killed and raped. I don't remember if it's a third or 2/3 of the city was destroyed. And that was the nationalist capital for the Chinese, right? That was where the Chinese nationalist headquarters was based in. So they absolutely ran through the place and demolished it. And our segue is going to be the League of Nations doing absolutely nothing. Because this next chunk of stuff that we're going to go over today is all about the League of Nations doing absolutely nothing about stuff that's like very alarming to us, you know, hindsight 2020. But like you might see back then, like it's about to get very real on, you know, the power scale, I guess, in Europe. Things that they wanted to prevent are coming to fruition, and we're going to see that firsthand. So, we'll start with Italy.
And I found here's a famous picture from the Nanking massacre.
Oh.
Easy, it's just complete.
Yeah, kids sitting in just absolute chaos. So yeah, I mean, same thing as always. Whatever I write down, you guys try to write down. And we're going to start with Italy. So the League's failure to stop Japan encouraged European fascists to plan their own aggressions. Right, so we have Italy. Mussolini sought to make Italy a strong military power and to carry out imperialist policies. What are some imperialist policies? What's like the main one? Land. Taking land. Because once you get land, you might get resources. You get new cities possibly. You can take over like industrial zones maybe, and now you're starting to industrialize on your own. Take over some people's stuff. So we'll write down Italy. That'll be like our header for this one. And Mussolini has imperialist policies. Right. Ethiopia, being one of the last independent nations in Africa, stood no chance against the Italian invaders in October of 1935, that they once previously defended against in 1890s. Right? So Italy tried to go through Ethiopia and failed in the 1890s. And now, after World War I, we saw like a big boom of technological advancements, right? And a lot of that through military technology. So we're getting machine guns, we're getting planes and tanks, we're using poison gases. So now they're not on an even playing field, I guess you could say. Ethiopians are majority still using swords and spears. There's the occasional rifles that they've had, but now the Italians, like in the bottom it says Italy had modern military equipment like tanks, planes, poison gases, and guns that dominated against the Ethiopian swords and spears. Wasn't even close. They just swept through the land and took Ethiopia. So we'll go Italy Footnote. Military tech was greater. Little greater sign. So, through the result of this, Ethiopian Emperor Haile Selassie urgently asked League of Nations for help. Although the League condemned the act, they did nothing. So we're also going to see right here. Oops, just press. Okay. No, you're good. I thought I pressed a button that was going to throw it off. So through here, the British allowed Italian shipments of supplies and troops through the British-controlled Suez Canal. So we see here, we got Europe right here, right? We got Italy and the Mediterranean. We got the UK right here. Ethiopia is right here on this little section right there in the horn. This is Somalia. This is Ethiopia. You have this Suez Canal that connects this part of the Indian Ocean through the Mediterranean, so European nations don't have to go all the way down and around Africa, right? Like they had to do in their old trade routes when they had, ships with sails, and they're not creating canals and being able to make giant ships that can travel a lot faster, right? So now the British control the Suez Canal. What do you think the British could have done to prevent or at least stall an invasion of Ethiopia? Close it off, right? I mean, hypothetically, they could have just said, hey, either you're paying us a lot of money to get through, which kind of would have looked pretty bad, but that, or you have to go all the way through here, or you have to go through northern Africa, and you might have to make deals with certain countries to get through, or you might have to attack other countries to even get through to Ethiopia. They could have prevented it, but they're walking on eggshells, right? The League of Nations, the UK, the French, everyone's walking on eggshells because they don't want to upset Hitler. They don't want to upset Mussolini. They don't want to stoke the flame, right, to get a war, right? Because World War I, you saw the atrocities, millions of people died, just the horrificness of war. They don't want to deal with this again. They don't want to go back into debt. They don't want to send their next young generation of men to go and die in another foreign war. But yeah, they this is kind of their way of making sure this doesn't happen. They're going to give in to Italy right here. They're saying, okay, we could have done something to stop it, but we don't want to provoke anyone, and we don't want to cause war. So by giving in to Italians in Africa, the British and French hoped this would keep peace in Europe. Where did this not keep peace? Ethiopia, yeah. Not their problem, right? UK, France are up here. We got our own problem in Europe. Down here, I guess Italy can have Ethiopia, sure. But as long as they only have Ethiopia, as long as only certain countries are taken, and we can keep it to a minimal number. So that you can kind of see the carelessness, I guess, through this policy of appeasement, which is what it's called, right? Giving in to a country so that it doesn't start a war. So now we're going to move over. I mean, that was all we're going to talk about for Italy today. We're going to move into Germany, and this is really what's starting to kick off giving into Germany and Germany becoming a powerhouse again. So let's make Germany better. Hitler defies Treaty of Versailles. In March of 35, Hitler announced the goal to disobey restrictions by rearming German military and was met with mild condemnation from the League. Again, the League says, we really don't like that you're doing what we told you exactly what not to do. But what are you going to do, right? We don't want to start war. Lack of accountability from the League pushed Hitler to take more extreme risks occupying the Rhineland. So do you guys remember when we talked about Treaty of Versailles and all the restrictions and limitations that were on there, right? They had to cut their military basically in a quarter of what it was. They had millions fighting in World War I. Now they have 100,000 soldiers. They had to entirely get rid of the Air Force and cut down their Navy into like a third of what it was. They also had to leave this region of the Rhineland. There was a piece of land that stretched 30 miles on each side of the river, the Rhine River. And this was a buffer zone between France and Germany, right? This was kind of to give a sense of peace, I guess you could say, to France, right? They don't have Germany on their doorstep right there. They have a buffer zone where if they know Germany's coming, they're going to see them in the Rhineland first, and they can prepare before Germany's in there, right? They have 60 miles of them moving in. before they can do something about it. So we have the German occupied the Rhineland on March 7th, 1936. France was stunned but unwilling to risk war. The British urged appeasement, giving in to reoccupation of the Rhineland. So we're right here, March of 35. March of 35, rearm German military. And then we have March of 36. Occupation of the Rhineland. Right? Rhineland being that buffer zone between France and Germany. You've got Netherlands and Belgium up here. Now, Germany going into the Rhineland, occupying the Rhineland, it's no longer a safe place, really, for France or those neutral countries like Belgium, who are sitting there like sitting ducks now that the Germans are rearming and revamping their military and going into the Rhineland. So, appeasement. Real quick before we go over it, we have a rough idea of what appeasement is, right? So, someone give me like their personal definition. We're talking about appeasement being giving in to the aggressors so that we don't start a war. How would you put that in your own words? Anyone?
Letting people get away with something because you're scared of them.
Okay. So we'll call it.
I mean, but also they're kind of like acting like it's their, like they're like, yeah, we can totally win, but like we're just being nice.
Sure.
Like not because Germany's like scary to them. They just want to keep peace.
Right. So you'd say letting people do what they want.
We'll do whatever now.
It usually doesn't keep peace in the long run.
To keep peace. Right, and we'll see specifically this doesn't really lead to it. So like a good example of appeasement, let's say, Evan, what's your favorite snack?
Goldfish.
Goldfish. Okay, use that as an example. Nice. Sam, favorite snack also.
Yeah, probably like goldfish or.
Go something else other than goldfish.
Those like those peanut butter pretzel things.
Peanut butter pretzels. Oh, yeah. You got the pretzels and the peanut butter side. Yeah.
Those, yeah.
Michael, favorite drink like Gatorade or soda or something.
Sprite.
Sprite. Okay. So say you're going through Roth's, right? And it's a small town, and if you're like me, if you go to Roth's, you probably see like 2 or 3 people you know in there already. And let's say you're going in there with your mom or your dad. And how many of you guys have younger siblings? Okay, well, most of you. So this will like actually make sense to you guys. Let's say you go before you had your younger sibling, you're an only child. Let's say you go to the store and you're like, Mom or Dad, I really want those goldfish in that aisle. We're walking down the snack aisle. Everything looks enticing, very tempting. I want those goldfish. And they're like, no, we have goldfish at home. But the goldfish at home don't even equate, right? They're not even good. They're like the multicolored ones. Like, you know, like the red and green ones. Yeah, no, those are cat food. No, no, those are bad. So let's say you're walking through and she's like, no, we have that at home, you don't need that. And you're like, fine, okay, whatever. And then you're walking down the aisle like, oh, Mom, 6-pack of Sprite. Like, please, I'm thirsty. Not for water, though. Because they always say, like, you just want water, you just need water. No. So you're walking through, you ask for all these stuff, they don't give in, right? Nothing, no one's budging. And then you go with your younger sibling, and they're like, I want goldfish. And your mom and dad's like, nah, you don't get goldfish. And now they're screaming and yelling profusely until they get what they want. And your mom's going to give in, right? It's like, fine, like $4 to get my kid to shut up at Roth's. Because I know people here, and it's embarrassing, right? And then they walk down the aisle. You see, like, those donuts at Roth's. You're like, I want a donut. Mom's like, nah. And now the little sibling starts screaming and yelling again until they get what they want. And what the grocery list originally was like 5 things, maybe you leave and there's like 10 things because you kept giving in to the little sibling who kept yelling and screaming at Ross and just would not shut up. That is basically appeasement, where you have the League of Nations, or like UK and France, and Germany keeps asking for the goldfish, right? They want to rearm the military. They keep asking for Sprite. They want the Rhineland. And what's next? They want all these small pieces of Europe that used to be part of this vast German Empire. That wasn't even insanely vast. It was just kind of like Central Europe. But they're asking for all these regions back that had all these ethnic Germans in them, where they knew they could gain support. That's basically what appeasement is. It's giving into someone in the hopes that it prevents war. Or in that grocery scenario, it's to prevent embarrassment, or your kid making a scene where you know people in the store and this is really embarrassing. My kid just won't shut up. They keep screaming. So that's what we have here. So Hitler later admitted that he would have backed down if the French and British had challenged him. Because right now we know their military was small. They've had a year to rebuild, but I mean, how much is a year going to do when you have multiple countries that could do something, right? But you have the League of Nations that could prevent it. So the occupation of the Rhineland was the turning point in the march toward war. So let's just write that. Rhineland equals turning point. Toward war. So the 3 things it did was strengthen power and prestige with Germany. They're rebuilding their army. They're taking back land. And they don't see a stop anytime soon because they just keep getting what they want. Japan was able to go through Asia. Nothing took place. Nothing happened. Italy went to Ethiopia. They got what they wanted. Germany rebuilt its military. They got what they wanted. They took the Rhineland back. They got what they wanted. And now we have a balance of power changed in Germany's favor. Now, from that previous picture, we have that Rhineland next to Belgium and France, right? So now France and Belgium are now open to attack from German troops. There wasn't a buffer zone protecting them. You also have typical League of Nations, weak response from France and Britain, which encouraged Hitler to advance expansion. All he did was push him to take more, kind of pushing the boundaries of what was acceptable for him, right? So Hitler's growing strength convinced Mussolini to create an alliance. In October of 1936, the 2 dictators reached an agreement called the Rome-Berlin Axis. And essentially what this does is it allies the 2 fascist leaders in Europe. So we'll write that down. What month are we at? October of 1936. Rome, Berlin, Axis. And this will turn into the Axis powers of World War II. A month later, Germany made the same agreement with Japan, thus forming the Axis powers of Germany, Italy, and Japan. So now, Axis powers with Germany, Japan, and Italy, right? The 3 aggressors in the world right now form an alliance, and that's kind of where we're at right now. And then now you see the greed kind of spill over in Germany. You see Hitler, we got our rearmed military, we rebuilt it, revamped it. Now we got the Rhineland back. We made this alliance with Italy and Japan. What next can we take? So he's going to look to other Central European regions and countries that became independent after World War I. For example, Austria and Czechoslovakia, who we're going to talk about, that still have a lot of ethnic Germans in them. So it's still it's enticing to Hitler because he knows he has support in these countries, right? He has ethnic Germans who strive to reach that status of the German Empire again. They want to be something bigger than they're at right now. But it's not going to be entirely convincing for them. Austria was easy for them to get into, but Czechoslovakia, it's going to bring up an actual event that we'll look into. We'll switch over. So now democratic nations try to preserve peace. Instead of taking action against fascist aggression in the 30s, Britain and France repeatedly made concessions, hoping to keep peace. Due to the worldwide Great Depression and experience from World War I, both countries had a deep desire to avoid war. During this time, the United States adopted the policy of isolationism. Real quick, just what's isolationism? If you were to guess. Stay out of it, right? Don't get involved, don't intervene. Isolated, right? That's the word. Huh? Be a bystander. Maybe a spectator, I guess, from a distance. You could see what's going on over there and maybe decide for later, like, should we get involved? It's kind of looking bad for someone, maybe an ally or not. But this is the policy that the United States adopts. Isolationists believe the U.S. involvement in World War I was costly and should be avoided if there were to be another war. And it's kind of looking like it, not entirely yet, but you're seeing the League of Nations isn't keeping Germany in check, isn't keeping Italy in check, isn't keeping Japan in check.
Thank you.
So we're seeing people kind of lose trust in the league, and you're seeing people expand. And when countries' borders get bigger, when a massive alliance of other countries don't like that, inevitably there probably will be conflict. Whether it's a global war or if there's a little scuffle or a border battle, something like that is always going to be something that happens. So in the beginning of 35, Congress passed 3 neutrality acts. These laws banned economic and military aid to other countries who were at war, such as loans or selling weapons or equipment. We'll kind of see this flip-flop in a couple years, where other countries at war and the U.S. decides, all right, Atlantic Charter, Lend-Lease Act, we're going to get involved, we're going to give stuff, but we're not putting boots on the ground. That's not what you want to do. So the U.S. at this time, we'll write down in USA 36, isolationism. Because you might be asking, like, why aren't we getting involved? We're like a powerhouse. We were like saved the day in World War I, right? We joined at the very end of the war and helped push back, and we won. So why aren't we getting involved? Well, this is why. We took the policy of isolationism. Wanted to stay out of it until maybe it became dire. And so now we have Germany going into Austria. Let me switch over. Sorry. So, German Reich expands. November 5th, 1937, Hitler announced to his advisors his plan to absorb Austria and Czechoslovakia into the Third Reich, or the German Empire, right? The new German Empire that Hitler's trying to build up. The Treaty of Versailles prohibited Anschluss, or the union between Austria and Germany. However, Hitler knew that there were many ethnic Germans in Austria who supported unity in Germany. So let's write over here. We'll start taking us on this side. In 37, November of 37, Hitler wants Austria and Czechoslovakia. I think I spelled that right. He wants them in his Third Reich, in the new German Empire. Through the Treaty of Versailles, it prohibited Anschluss. So let's write down Anschluss, meaning union between Austria and Germany. But there were a lot of ethnic Germans in Austria who supported this Anschluss, right? So in March of 38, Hitler sent his army into Austria and annexed it, and again, Britain and France did nothing and ignored their pledge to protect an independent Austria. So we go March of 38. Annexed Austria. What does annex mean? Absorb. Yeah, take control, to absorb. How many of you went to Soapton Middle School and there was those mobile classrooms out in that parking lot behind the school? Those are annexes. Those are just additional classrooms. Those are additional building. This is additional land, right? So you've got the annexation of Austria. And now it's going to lead into the almost what would look like an invasion into Czechoslovakia, right? They annex Austria, and they're on the doorstep of Czechoslovakia. And we're going to see a little map that has like the hooks. So this is Czechoslovakia right here. We're going to see the map on the next one that loops in there. And that's called the Sudetenland. We'll switch over slides. So next on Hitler's list was Czechoslovakia. 3 million German speakers lived in the western border region of Czechoslovakia called the Sudetenland. This little light red little patch of land right here. Basically like entirely surrounds what goes into Germany from Czechoslovakia. Hitler's goal was to expand the borders of Germany to unify all ethnic Germans in the area, in that Central Europe, right? We have ethnic Germans that were in Austria, and now there's some in Sudetenland, in that little region, west border of Czechoslovakia. The western border is where Czechoslovakia would heavily fortify their defense against the Germans, anticipating invasion. We've seen time and again through the annexation of the Anschluss, right, of the unity or the unifying people groups of Germany and Austria, these ethnic Germans. There's a lot of them throughout this area, and there's some in Poland. So we're gonna kind of see Hitler expanding and reaching his arm into Central Europe. So let's write down 38. We're still in 38. German expansion for Czechoslovakia. The Anschluss raised pro-Nazi feelings among Sudeten Germans, right? These Germans in Czechoslovakia. In September of 38, Hitler demanded that the Sudetenland be given to Germany. The Czechs denied the request and looked to France for help. All right, September. And these months, like, they're important, but they're not like, you guys need to memorize the months that these happen. This is just like, to make like a rough timeline, basically. September 38. Hitler demands Sudetenland. What do you guys think Britain and France are going to do about it? Interesting. What makes you say that? Because they always do nothing. Right, the League of Nations does absolutely nothing. And so now we'll switch over to the next slide. This should lead us into our activity. We've got, so we're going to do the activity and we're going to find the results for tomorrow. On your Canvas, in your module, there is a document titled Appeasement Activity. And what we're going to do is we're going to fill that out. You can work in your table groups, but it should be, each person should individually have their own sheet. So it's going to be in the Appeasement section module. And once you click on that, then the third link, Appeasement Activity. And the instructions, I'll try to simplify them. Basically, on the left, there are 16 arguments. I'll give you guys a second to pull it up, and then we'll get into it.
Still going.
You got a Chromebook charger?
No, I gave mine to my sister.
All right, we got that pulled up. So the instructions. There's this, guys. There's a grid, and it has 16 arguments over here. Some of them are going to be more appeasing, right? Appeasement policy, where they're like, let's back away from this. We don't want to start a war. Some of them are going to be more confronting, like, oh, if we do this, then this might happen. We might as well fight. Like, we should probably do something about this. You don't know which ones they are necessarily. You can probably figure it out if you read into them, but we'll discuss that later. You are going to pick from the 16 arguments on the left side your top 9. And then in this ranking column, you're going to rank them from the top to the bottom, your favorite arguments and why. So if if the first one is your favorite, the British people do not want another war, that you'll put in here. And then maybe you say most other countries are not willing to join us in war against Germany anyway. That might be your second reason. So you're going to rank them. And the 9 that you choose from the 16. You have a question? Okay, so there's 16 arguments right here. This is helpful. In this lesson, you are the British. This is kind of like when you guys did that Versailles activity, and you had to like prioritize certain things you wanted in the Treaty of Versailles. This is the same thing, except you're prioritizing if you want to go to war or not go to war with Germany. If you want to appease or if you want to confront. So of the 16 that are going to be on this list under arguments, you're going to pick 9 that you most agree with. And this is personal. This isn't like historical context like, oh, well, they did this, so I have to do that. Like, if you would have done it a different way, you can pick different answers. So you'll pick 9 arguments and rank them from the one that you most agree with to the one that you least agree with, which will be worth like 1 point. And after you guys rank them, we'll go over which ones are appeasing, and we'll highlight them blue, and which ones are confronting, and we'll highlight them red. And then once we have them highlighted, you'll combine the scores of where you rank them. So like say you have a blue one in this spot, that's 9 points for blue. You have a red one in the 7th points, that's 7 points for red. Let's say this one's red also, now you have 14 points for red. So by the end of it, we'll see if you most likely would have been an appeaser or a confronter. Does that make sense? You're picking your 9 favorite or ones that you most agree with arguments. Yeah.
Are we putting like these ones here?
Yeah, so you'll copy and paste from the box into this ranking column, the ones that you agree with. And then once we're all have our top 9, whether it's at the end of class or if it's the next time we get together, we'll color code them for either appeasing or confronting, and then we'll tally up the scores for each one, and you'll find out which one you were. Yeah.
So what happens if my Chromebook is dead?
Chromebook is dead. There's got to be a charger in here somewhere. Yeah, someone's got one.
There's one right here.
And we have plenty of time to work out this 5, 10,
I'm
15,
adult.
20 minutes. You guys should make decent headway in 20 minutes. We should at least be able to rank our top 9 in 20 minutes. And then on, what day is it today? Tuesday? So on Thursday, then we'll tally up the scores and stuff. But yeah, so does anyone else have any questions? We know what we're doing? Picking our 9 favorite arguments for what you believe in. Alright, awesome. We'll work on that.